Well, hello everyone. Happy to be here. And we have a special guest today. I'm going to preface by saying he is my cousin, so I am a little biased. Patrick DeBortoli is joining us. He was one of the contributors to our July magazine where we talked about relationships, and he just wrote a phenomenal article. And Sarah and I wanted to bring Patrick on to talk to him about his article and get to know Patrick a little bit more. Patrick, maybe you can just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background so people can
Sure.
get to know you.
Yeah. So I'm a couple and a family therapist, and I've been practicing therapy for 18 years now. I graduated from Syracuse University and did a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, as we used to call it. And now I've worked I've worked a lot in community settings, because part of my training was the two aspects of my training in Syracuse that were absolutely essential to me, and that's why I choose Syracuse of all the programs in the United States, because it was a program for to train couple and family therapists, but their aim were these two values, which was social justice and self of the therapist. And
What
so
was the
self of the
second one?
therapist,
I'm sorry, what was the second
self
one?
of self of the therapist. It means that uh, part or a big part of the focus through the general training was to have therapists work on themselves and confront their biases, their prejudices, their racism, their classism, their ageism, any blind spots that we might have also, and also they were, strongly encouraging us to do the work in between us classmates. We were like 10 in our program, and every class was sort of a group therapy. And we had to work on our relationships. We had to work on our family relationships. We had to bring our family in at one point, and do our family history kind of genogram in front of our family. So for me to be a good therapist, to be a good clinician, you have to have done the work that you're asking your clients or your patients to do. And so that I carry that with me, and I still strongly believe that it's essential to be a good clinician. And social justice is another just strong value that often therapists don't think about. In therapy, we bring not only our patient and ourselves, but we bring all of our society into the therapy. So what's going on outside, it happens inside. So if I see somebody that is of color in my office, or if I see somebody that's from another ethnic background, or somebody that's from another class, or that is another sexual orientation, all this has to come to play and has to be talked about and underscored, because it's happening outside and they're living different things because of how they are different from me outside, and I'm living different things in society because of what describes me or what gives me privilege. So we have to open up on that too in therapy, and so I think that those were two very significant parts for me.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but yeah, exactly, right, Sarah. And Sarah and I both went through life coaching, and it was, similar. I mean, it wasn't Syracuse University, but we had to coach each other, and we had to that's how we were taught how to coach, is by us being able to coach each other and work on what was going on with us as well. So
That's right. That's right.
yeah, that's really
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like to say something. Yes, it is. I have two certifications, one life coaching and insight coaching. Of course, it's not university, but I've done a lot of it. And what you said is the very reason that I don't practice coaching one-on-one. It's
Mm,
because feel that I am biased. I feel that I am not prepared because I cannot put myself, I did not live those things. I did not put myself in situations that would make me live those things. And that's been a really hard thing for me to move past, let's say, for me to
yeah.
really conquer and go. I don't feel I'm prepared to do it, so I'd rather not be a coach. So I'm
Mm.
very happy that you said that.
Yeah, and I think so. There's, of course, we cannot have lived all people's
Yeah,
experiences, right? Um, but I think that it's really this perspective that we need to have and cultivate, which is about I need to get informed in situations that if I'm confronted to a situation, I know I'll be confronted to a situation which I don't know about the other perspective. I don't know about standing on the other side of that fence. I think that it's my duty to get informed beforehand and to make sure that I have all the necessary tools, at least all the necessary tools that show that I'm open to um, to hearing and receiving and also cultivating uh, diversity, or I guess I could
yeah,
frame it
whatever
that
it
way.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And human diversity comes in all forms. The categories that I named before that are more sort of
yeah,
circumscribed, but then there's individual diversity. Then there's family cultures that are very different within a same larger culture, and so so ultimately being authentic, presenting yourself with authenticity in the therapy room and in relationship to others in general is key. And being authentic means also being honest about the work that I've done on myself, and also still the limits and the prejudices and the biases that I still carry, right?
And sometimes you have to put that aside when you're with your patients and learning to
Well,
put that aside.
as either a side or naming it.
Yeah.
I prefer naming it. I prefer having like this I don't know. And you know what? I've had an experience where I have a tendency to think that, but let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
Let's be different and have a conversation about it. And that's what we see in society as being very problematic within the realm of politics or any other very sensible subject, is that we are afraid to stay in dialogue. So I said something that has hurt you, and the first thing you might do, understandably, is be, upset and show it, and that's fine. My role is to stick there and be with you and say, oh, okay, so what did I say to hurt you? And how did that hurt you specifically? And so if we can both stay there and have a dialogue about it, it's a difficult dialogue, but that's how we create intimacy. That's how we create deeper relationships. If the person walks out of the conversation, you won't never understand. Well, we can have that conversation. And as soon as somebody says, "Oh, you've hurt me that way," and I say, "Oh, I didn't hurt you. I didn't," no, I become defensive. I get out of the dialogue as well. And we do not communicate, we did not cultivate, and we do not get closer. Uh, so, so biases are always there. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a racist. I'm homophobic. I have all sorts of biases, and we all do. The problem is when we say I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm a human being, so I might work on myself and try as much as I can to enlighten myself about different subjects. But when we are not in the experience of the other, thus we have prejudices and biases automatically.
I like what you said about communication, because a lot of times when we are in communication, emotions come in. And it's when the emotion comes in that the
Mm-hmm.
communication stops.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, like I offended you or whatever. So
Sorry.
you get triggered, and then
Exactly.
it's like, you hurt me, so I want to hurt you back. You said something nasty to me, so I want to say something nasty to you back. So that's where communication breaks down.
Totally.
What is your advice when couples, partners, work colleagues, when
Mm-hmm.
things like that happen, what's your advice?
Well,
Like how do you deal with that?
the first
I'm
thing that
triggered.
comes to mind. So again, we will always be triggered in relationships. We will always, at some point, right? Uh, and we are triggered when we are hurt, when we feel unseen, that we feel that we don't matter, um, and so these emotions come up, and we do have the natural tendency as human beings to self-protect, and that's the reaction, right? That's when we are reactive. I'm hurt, and the thing that I have a tendency to do, that we all have a tendency to do, is to self-protect. How do I self-protect? The three ways that we've learned through evolution: either we fight, we flight, or we freeze. So in some instances, I feel hurt and I'll attack. I'll become big to scare the threat away, or I'll freeze and I'll just quiet down, shut up, don't talk, don't move. Um, or I'll run away. I'll silent treatment. I'm going off. I'm disappear, getting out of the room, getting out of the house. Um, so that's natural, of course. Now, what we don't want to be doing is being stuck in those patterns, because, like you said, Norma, it sort of kills communication. So, what we want to be able to do, first and foremost, I think, is we have to remind ourselves constantly, um, do I want to be right, or do I want to have a relationship? Do I want to be, proving my point, or do I want a connection? Do I want to express my anger and my hurt and my sense of, my victimhood, or do I want a relationship? So this is to keep in the back of our heads. What do I want here? Because remember, I'm talking in either loving relationships or even professional relationships, we want to be connected, and we want to feel connected. And it's much more threatening when we start feeling that we are not connected. And sometimes that's where the reactivity stems from initially. It's like he didn't see me, he doesn't recognize me, or she doesn't care about me, and so I feel disconnected, and that's where I feel scared. Now, if we start understanding that by being reactive we feed that process of disconnection, then we need to start working for ourselves. What's the best way for me to be heard and to remain connected here? So let's work egotistically for ourselves. And working egotistically for ourselves in this particular context will be working for the relationship and for our partners as well. So, what we want to do is be able to honor our emotion, recognize it, and then instead of acting it out, we can name it. We can say, Norma, what you just told me really hurt me. It hurt me because I felt that in the way you said this, I didn't matter to you. And that makes me sad. And it scares me as well. Because if I'm not seen and if I don't matter to you, like, I don't know. Right? And so here it is. That's my hurt. I can add, I feel I want to react with anger because I feel I want to yell at you right now.
There's an element of vulnerability as well, right? And I think in relationships, I think that's probably the hardest thing is that nobody wants to show their cards. Nobody wants to be vulnerable. Nobody wants to show that they're weak.
Mhm. That's right. That's right. But the thing is, um, I think that that's when we need to ask ourselves, how do I want to be connected with my partner? Because if we feel that we are just caught in a power struggle all the time, and that if I show vulnerability, I'm going to be hurt by the person in front of me, then we certainly need to have a discussion and a dialogue. And we need to start talking about how can we do this where I can share stuff with you and have the assurance that you will not hurt me or you won't take advantage of me while I'm sharing this? Can we find ways, techniques? Can we take turns when we talk? You know, there are different kinds of exercises that we can do to allow that and start cultivating that. There's a Italian a novelist called uh, Cesare Pavese that said that you will feel love the moment that you'll know that you can be vulnerable with your partner and he or she will not use that moment to hurt you or to turn it against you. And so you're right in naming vulnerability is absolute. There is no intimacy if there's no vulnerability. So that's another choice. Obviously, if we are in a relationship where we've never felt safe, then maybe it's not wise to be vulnerable.
I'm starting to question that relationship actually.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
And so then
Absolutely.
maybe we need to think about where we are in the relationship and if
Yeah.
this is a relationship that's made for us, or is there room to navigate, or can I go seek therapy help so that we can both try working in a different way so that it starts feeling safe, because there cannot be intimacy without vulnerability.
Wow.
So good. So good. So, I guess our intent was to kind of talk about the article that you wrote, but this
This is
conversation that
going well. This is going well.
I know exactly, exactly. Um, so it's like I don't even know where to go next. I mean, it's just been such a great conversation. But I did pull up the article because you had the seven relational secrets from the therapy room, and I just think there's something to be said about each one. So
Mhm.
if I go through each one, can you just give us, I mean, I know it's in the article, but
Sure.
sometimes people hearing it, it's a little different.
Absolutely.
So the first one is getting over yourself and relearning about the relationship.
Mhm.
What
Yes. So in a few words, um, there are sort of three levels that we need to cultivate when we are in intimate relationships. we have to cultivate the relationship that we have with ourselves. We have to cultivate the relationship we have with our partner, and we have to cultivate the relationship we have with the relationship. So, because when we are two individuals come together, we create a third entity, which is the relationship. And so that's the type of thing when I said, do you want to choose to be right, or do you want to choose to have a relationship? That would be investing. That would be getting over yourself and investing in your relationship. Because there's this third thing here that we need to work together. We need to garden together to make that relationship work. And these are the types of decisions that we need to make. What do I want? Do I want a relationship? Do I want do I want to continue and to flourish with my partner, or do I want to just go in my corner and show him or her that I'm angry and that he's wrong, or that she's not, you know, didn't do it right? So sometimes we need to get over ourselves and choose connection, choose the relationship.
I have a hard time getting over myself. Let's just let's just address that. Yes.
It's
But I
not
do it.
easy.
It's not. It's very, very hard. And my husband doesn't help because he does it like constantly. He's always getting over himself and
Mm.
being he's very vulnerable. He's just there and I need to ask myself constantly, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? That's like my default.
Right.
It's like
That's right.
when we're getting into it, I always go there because I mean, I
Yeah.
love a good fight. He doesn't. So it's a bit tricky to navigate, but you know, I think
So, but in that case, getting over yourself could also be in a post-fight um, moment, because conflict happens in relationships. So we can tend walk towards an ideal, but it won't happen, right? So we will get overwhelmed, we will get defensive, and we will have arguments or fights. But in your example, if you chose relationship and got over yourself after fighting, an hour after, a day after, a week after, it doesn't matter. You go back to your partner and you say, yesterday we had that fight, and I know I said things that were hurtful, or I reacted in a way that I shouldn't have. I became verbally violent, or I disregarded your feelings. And I thought about it. And I want to own up to that. And I want to say I'm sorry. And I want to try. I want to make this promise that I'll try to do better every time I get to that place where in the moment it's too hard for me to get over myself. Well, now I did it. I did it 2 days later. Maybe next time I'll do it a day later and have a recovered conversation.
I
Then you're saying, I want a relationship. I want to be in that relationship, and I want to work towards it.
thank you.
So good. And I never thought about, you know, the three areas, me, you, and us.
Yeah.
And I never thought about the
And the
relationship
beautiful
being.
thing about that concept is that you work in one sphere, you're working on the two others. So if I work on us, I work on, I choose the relationship, then I choose me, because I know I feel better when I'm connected. And I choose my partner because I know he or she feels better when they're connected. And I also, I choose self-love because I'm thinking about myself in thinking of being connected. And then when I self-love, obviously I can better love and better receive love. And then I'm working on us, and it's so it just goes around. It's a win-win-win situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, the next one is learning the basics. The classical rule of a healthy relationship is using I statements instead of you.
Yeah. So that's the classic. It's hard. It's very simple, but it's hard. So just, forgetting to point the finger. It's not about pointing the finger. It's about expressing how I feel. Because if I say you said this, or you had that tone, or you're disrespectful, or you're not fair, we'll argue for a long time. I didn't say that. That's not what I said. I didn't have a tone. Yeah, yes, you did. Yeah. And where you doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. What's essential to you. And if you and this is what we want to get to. We want to get to our essential. We want to get to express exactly what I felt. And the best way and the safest way to do that is not talking about the other person. It's about talking to. So the other person won't feel threatened as much. If I say, last night when I heard you say that, whatever, I felt
Yeah.
sad. I
Yeah.
felt alone. I felt afraid. And there we are now.
First,
So we're in vulnerability.
yeah. For me, I think this is one that I try to go to all the time. And I know, Mike always says, so it's my fault. And I have to take that back and I have to own it and say, no, this is what I'm saying. This is how it made me feel, so bringing it back to me and not the finger pointing.
Exactly. Exactly. Perfect. Because that way, what you said, Mike, could have been received in 10 different ways with 10 different
Mm.
people. But I just want to share with you that for me, that's a sensitive aspect. Or, that for me equals I don't matter to you. Maybe we can have a conversation about it. Because we are two different universes, right?
Yeah. Mars,
And
Venus and Mars.
well, yes, that I don't like that book. When I say we are from different universes, individuals are from different universes, right? In Montreal, we like a eco museum, what's called a biodome, when we go through different ecosystems. So there's the Arctic with their penguins, and then there's the tropical forest where they're monkeys. Sometimes I say to couples, one of you is from Antarctica and the other one's from the jungle, tropic. And so when we meet with our individual experiences, with our family cultures, we come from completely different universes. So it's going to take a while, 30, 40 years, to 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 get to understand that when I say wow, it's so green and I love when it's green. And the other's like, what are you talking about? Green? Everything's white, you know? And the other said, I'm so warm. And what? We're two different universes. So when you say apple in one universe, you think it's going to land in the other universe, meaning apple. But it doesn't because there's no apple in my world. So when you say apple for me, it means something completely different. And sometimes it's hurtful. What? Really? We need to talk about that. So I statements is a good way to start doing that without triggering too much the other person, and nobody can contest how I feel.
Yeah. The next one is witnessing self, and I think we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's part of being a sort of reporter to ourselves, and instead of acting out our emotion, we say, I feel really angry. I'm really upset right now. I feel like yelling. I feel like saying hurtful things to you, and that's being witness to ourselves. and reporting that to our partners through I
Um,
statements.
yeah, love mirrors love.
Hmm. That's so important. Huh? This idea that um, we can only receive the love that we give to ourselves.
Yeah, I like you have a statement in here. The love you invest in self will mirror the love you will receive.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So self-love is the hardest thing we can do. But it is so important. It is so important because if we cannot feel ourselves as totally lovable, consciously or subconsciously, we will not expect that the other partner will love us fully because we don't love each other. So we will accept less than what we should. We will satisfy ourselves with less than what we should. And we end up always thirsty and not feeling whole and complete. And so we have to start with self.
Yeah. Have recovery conversations.
Yeah, so the recovered conversation was what I was talking about
Yeah.
with Sarah. So
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes we're not able to overcome our emotions in the moment. We over we were flooded, and it derails. It happens,
yeah.
but
And then
we
the
need to
last
have.
two is honoring the other. So be curious
Mhm.
and invest in your loved ones. And I think
Yeah,
we've touched upon all this and
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We need to
So,
be curious. Ask what it means.
yeah.
Why did you react that way? But from a curious standpoint, you
yeah,
know, how our partners feel and how they react and says more about them than it says about us. So even if our partner shoots at us cannonballs of and you did this, you did that, their reaction says more about them than it says about us. If we can create that space for ourselves, then we're able to come to our partners with that space of curiosity. You said that I said that to you. You felt that that was very egotistical. So how did that make you feel? And encourage them to start being vulnerable. And remember, maybe you can have, you can relate to the fact that if your partner comes to you and says, I'm really sad, I feel really sad because of this or that, or I'm scared. Sometimes I'm scared in our relationship. I'm scared that you don't love me. Versus, you're never there for me. You don't care. You're just selfish. Which part are you more receptive to?
yeah.
The
The first
vulnerable
one,
part?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want your partner to be sad, feel scared.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very powerful. And I like that it's like these small steps. So let me just go back to the love question. I think Norma wants to end this. Um, you said that we'll only accept as much love as we love ourselves.
Mhm.
So would you say, would you agree that we are capable of loving the other person only to the amount that we love ourselves?
It's a good question. Um, I think so too. I think we are limited in the way that we can render love. If we are limited in the way we render it to ourselves. And so sometimes it will look differently, right? Because sometimes people that don't self-love are extremely selfless and could give a lot, you know. but in a way, it's a way to compensate for the lack of self-love, because I'm going to give so much of myself, go beyond the limits of my boundaries to please, or to show that, that I'm generous and care, full of love. And but the reality is that I'm giving my partner no choice to love me, because I'm being so selfless and I'm giving so much. And so my hope deep inside is that this person cannot reject me. It's an insurance policy that this person cannot reject me. They don't have the choice to love me, because I give them more than 100% of myself. But when I do that, I'm not self-loving, because I'm not respecting my boundaries, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually we reach our limits. Then resentment starts growing and all sorts of other problems. So it compromises our connection to the other. So self-loving is knowing where we start and when we finish, and accepting that I have limits. I have to own up to that, and I have to accept that. And I have so many good things about myself. And I authentically have to recognize that. Not in boasting, I'm so good at this, I'm better at that. No, no, no. Just like I know I'm good at math. I know I'm good at relationships. I know I'm good at, you know, connecting with people. But I sometimes I have difficulty being totally vulnerable. And sometimes I know I'm very shy, and I know whatever it is.
Yeah.
We're all humans, and we're all we all have flaws, but we all have beauty inside of us. So we need to recognize that and know where Patrick starts and where Patrick finishes. Say that's okay. It's good enough.
Thank you. That was very good.
So good. I just my God, I could just keep asking you all these questions. We could be here for a couple hours, but I think one that I'd like your thoughts on, you mentioned boundaries, and I'm a big boundaries person. I truly believe in boundaries. But I think if I can kind of summarize our conversation today, boundaries are good as long as there's communication behind it.
Mhm, mhm. And
Right?
so,
Because if
okay,
I'm
so
triggered by something and my boundary is like, I'm feeling triggered, I'm going to walk away. But
mhm,
my partner may not know I'm walking away because I'm triggered.
absolutely, totally, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I couldn't agree more. So
Yeah.
it's important to, because we like you say, we need to communicate our boundaries, right? We can't expect other people to know what our boundaries are if we don't talk about them. If we don't say, you know what, I don't let my partner or anybody come more close than this. And I'm not talking connection. I'm talking in we know that our boundaries are being crossed when we start sort of losing a part of ourselves. We're using more energy than we're receiving. So same thing. I'm ready to go as far as this, but I know that if I go further, I start to not self-love. I start hurting myself. So sometimes punctually I can, in circumstance to context, I'll go a bit further. That's part of a relationship. But I know that in most of the cases, this is how far I can go. This is how much I can give without starting to hurt myself. And we need to communicate that. We need to tell our partners and our coworkers and our friends that this is how far I can go. And it's not that I don't love you. It's just that I respect myself, and I'm allowed to say no sometimes. That's a self-loving act.
Yeah. So good.
Very, very
I
good.
love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we've gone a little bit over our time, but I really enjoyed this conversation. And I was going to ask you for like a wrap up, but there's just people just have to listen to the entire thing because it's hard to wrap it all up in a final statement. Just
Yeah. Yeah, relationships are very complex, and so are we. And so we have to embrace that complexity and take our time, learn, try, come back, try again, be curious about ourselves, and yeah. And so
and it's work. People
it's
forget
work.
that
Right.
it's work. Just because you've been married 20 years, it's work
Mhm.
every day. I mean, I know that, Mike and I have evolved in the past,
Oh,
29, 30 years. There's
oh yeah.
and every new experience brings, a different change, and you got to talk about it and
Yeah.
move
Yeah.
through it.
Especially if when we stay that long in relationships. I'm not the same Patrick I was when I was 19 years old,
Yeah.
and almost 25 years later in my relationship, like my partner's not the same either, and so it's work to keep
Yeah.
us up to date, to keep our partners up to date to where we are, and redefine our relationship because things have changed, events have happened, trauma has happened. There's been so
Kids
many
happen.
things happen. You know, so yes, it is work. It's work, and it's commitment, and it's knowing what we want. It's knowing what we want.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, I really, really appreciate your time with us. I know we had a hard
Pleasure.
time getting you, but it was worth the wait.
It was, it was. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It
Yeah.
was very nice talking
Sarah,
to you.
any final thoughts or good?
I have a lot of thoughts right now.
Well,
I think
we're
my
we're
thoughts are starting to have thoughts.
well, we can always reach out to Patrick if anybody has wants to find Patrick. If you want to just let people know where they can find you, if they want more information
Um,
or if they want counseling or whatever. I
yeah,
mean, I know it's in the magazine, but if you can put it
yeah,
here as well.
yeah. It's my website. I think if I remember is uh, psychothérapie horizon. So it's in French, but psychotherapy instead of the Y, it's IE and horizons plural .com. And you'll find me and my other co-founder of the clinic. And I guess if through the magazine you'll see my email also, Patrick
Yeah,
at
we'll put it
psychotherapy.
in the notes. Yeah,
We'll
it'll
put
be
everything
easier.
here. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Thank you so much, Patrick. Love
Thank
my
you.
you.
pleasure. Thank you.
Yep.
It was lovely
And
seeing you.
safe travels home. And we'll see you when
Thank
you get
you.
home.
All right. Ciao, ciao.
Bye bye.
Bye.